Hello everyone, and welcome to a Ben 10 versus video between Ghostfreak and Big Chill, Ben's two ghost-like aliens. And after doing research for this, I think this one is actually very close, and I'll explain that later. But of course, before, we get into any specifics, go ahead, go down and give this video a like if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more Ben 10 or other content, and, join my social medias, Blue Sky, Tumblr, join the Discord as well, and I do have a Patreon, so, yeah. Anyway, let's get to the video. Of course, we're going to start with the original, Ghostfreak, and going into his, abilities. Due to being an ectoneurite, he is a ghost-like being, or practically just a ghost, and with that, well, he gets ghost abilities, that being able to essentially phase through objects, aka intangibility. He can also go invisible, and of course he can possess people, with some exceptions, like this zombie. For whatever reason, apparently he just didn't have a mind for him to take over. So I guess his mind's too deteriorated for him to possess him. So that's something. Normal ghosts really don't have that problem, but I guess that's a bad thing for this Ziskar and other ectoneurites. So yeah. Of course, he also has pretty good prehensile tentacles, which are also pretty sharp to a certain extent, and along with his sharp tentacles, which he can also ensnare foes with, he also has very sharp claws that can rip through metal. And to add on to that, which has nothing to do with the other ones, he can also apparently just shapeshift into smoke for whatever reason, but he can do that. For some reason, he can also just move his eye around all over his body, and just so you know, the gray parts of his body, yeah, it's like an outer portion or like an outer skin that he uses to protect himself from the sunlight. Outside of that, he kind of disintegrates. It's very much bad for him, but he can also regenerate if he's back in and out of the sunlight, so it's not that big of a deal. He also has a prehensile tail, just in case you were wondering. Oh, yeah, and for some reason I didn't talk about this earlier. Yeah, he can fly and levitate. I mean, he's a ghost. Why wouldn't he be able to? And lastly, he is completely immune to getting his mana absorbed since he is a ghost. He's not going to have stuff like that since it's life energy. So, yeah. In terms of actual feats that he is able to dodge a laser that was produced by Siphon, and, well, later in the episode, just a couple moments, he was able to stop an entire bus from falling over with his tentacles. And he's also able to rip open metal robots with his, claws and all that. And also is able to tank magical attacks from, Charmcaster. Though, granted, he did get knocked out due to it, so I don't know how much of a feat it is. Next, going on to his opponent, that being Big Chill, and of course, being a Necrophrygian, you can probably guess what his abilities are. He has Ghost-like and Frost, or Ice-based abilities. Said ice-based abilities he usually uses through his Ice Breath. He uses that pretty much the most, though he can use it in a couple other ways. One way he can use it is either he can send the ice across the ground pretty much at you. He can send it even through the air through his ice constructs before they fully solidify, of course. He can just make snow, I guess. That's just a thing he can do. Shoot out little ice rays out from his little hands to freeze stuff at a distance if need be. And of course he can just freeze stuff normally with his touch as well. He of course also has a phasing ability where he can just, phase through solid objects. And he can combine this alongside his ice-based ability to phase through an object or person, being whatever, and can freeze them completely solid, which is amazing. It's actually a very interesting power, if I'm going to be honest. He has the basic stuff that he has. He has sharp claws, so he can rip into stuff. He's got a very strong jaw to rip into metal. And speaking of, he can also just eat molten metal, just flat out, which is just actually insane. So yeah, he's got a very strong jaw as well. He of course can fly with the wings that he has on his back because he is a moth and insect like, creature, but for some reason he can also just levitate while in cloaked form. For some reason he can just kind of do that. All right. Of course, he can have a cloak form, as I said before. It's just he folds his wings over himself to look like he has a cloak on. He also can just survive out in space, just fly out there, which kind of makes sense since, necrophagian babies can feed on solar plasma, apparently. But yeah. He also can survive underwater as well, just out there. Whether he breathes it, I do not know. I don't know if he can breathe underwater, but he can survive at least underwater and like deep underwater. So that's cool. And of course, lastly, to top everything off, he is also immune to the cold. I mean, he can produce and create ice, so that makes sense. But also, he is immune to radiation, as he like kind of just standed near or was around Pandora for a certain amount of time, so he's at least resistant if you don't fully believe it. Now, in terms of actual feats, Big Chill doesn't have that many, similar to Ghostfreak, but they do have some. They were able to completely freeze over Devoid's power generator and was able to make it crumble a little bit, or at least screw it up. So there's that. He was also able to dodge laser fire from the plumbers, whether you consider these lasers or not. I'm pretty sure they are, or at least plasma, so it's still a feat nonetheless. But he's also able to tank a laser blast specifically from Crab, a bounty hunter. And if you remember this guy, I'm glad you do. Now, with all of the feats shown, who will win between these two ghost-like Ben aliens? And I personally think this is actually a extremely close matchup. Just to start out, Big Chill's ice is practically useless during this, although in both instances between both aliens, they have been frozen before, but in both instances, they never really tried to get out of it. They can totally phase through the ice. There's nothing that implies that they can't. Usually, whenever this happened, they would just transform into a different alien because there's really no point, if I'm going to be honest. Going on with their actual feats, both of them are pretty much around the same speed, so it's not like someone can, outspeed the other or outmaneuver them. They're pretty similar in speed, or both reaction speed and movement speed based off of what I know. Though in terms of physical strength, they're better in certain areas. For an example, Big Chill has very good jaws, so if he ever gets a good, chomp on Ghostfreak, that will do some damage. But also, Ghostfreak's regular, claws can rip through metal and stuff, and he's able to hold over, a bus from falling over, so that's at least something. He could ensnare Big Chill very easily, and since they can both go intangible, that's very possible to happen. Though maybe the first time he tries it, he could, maybe phase out of it, and Ghostfreak would be surprised, but that's never really going to happen again, technically for both of them, if I'm going to be honest. Though, I would have to bring up one thing that Big Chill doesn't have that Ghostfreak does, and that's invisibility. In this fight, this is going to be a very, very good ability for Ghostfreak to be able to sneak up on Big Chill, and especially after he already knows that, Big Chill can go intangible, he can just counter that pretty easily with his own intangibility, wrap him up with, his tentacles, and just take him out with his claws or something like that. Though, granted, Big Chill does have a win con in this. If he, let's say, like rips off at least like a bunch of his skin and brings him out into the sunlight, or at least to a, bright enough light, he could potentially win. Though that's assuming that, Ghostfreak even lets him in the first place. So there's that. So in terms of this entire fight, I personally, you guys can disagree on me on this, I think Ghostfreak most likely wins this. Though I might have, missed some feats here and there, and you guys can tell me them in the comments. But for the most part, I personally think Ghostfreak most likely wins this. Though it is very close. I'd like to remind you guys that. Alright, and that's pretty much it. If you guys ever disagree with me on this, or if you think Big Chill genuinely wins, go ahead and tell me down in the comments. I'll be looking at them, obviously, and I'm very open-minded. I may or may not have been wrong. Let's be honest. I could very much be wrong on my judgment in this, but that's perfectly fine. But if you guys want me to make another one of these videos, or to vote on which one, you'll be able to, actually vote on which one I will do next in the community tab. Go ahead and, go over to my community tab and vote on which of these 4 matchups you want to see. They'll be up on screen. I'll pick them before, this video goes out, obviously. I don't know now, but, there they are. So go ahead and vote for them, and whichever one of those 4 you guys pick will be the next versus video, or Ben 10 versus video to be more specific. But anyway, I hope you liked the video, and that shall be all for now.